So, Daan, I heard you had the chance to play with Labo. I called it Labo. I went from Daan to Labo. So, Daan, you had the chance to put together your own Labo, play with it, build it. What did you think of it?
I enjoyed it a lot. I honestly, I was in 4 hours. I was even more sold on Labo than I already was. And it has been a whole experience of just building stuff, and it's even as simple as building the RC car. It just felt really nice to do. Just following the instructions on the touchscreen, swiping it forward to go to the next one, pinching, moving around the screen to see what the game asks from you. Mm-hmm. It's just one of the nicest experiences I've ever had building something. It comes from a guy who built an IKEA cabinet, so that's maybe saying a lot.
Yeah, I put together an IKEA bed, so I kind of know what you mean. It's awesome to hear that, because I felt pretty much the exact same way, because I played with it a few weeks ago, and I had my niece come with me, and I was already sold on Labo from the get-go. Like, when I saw that trailer, I'm like, that is brilliant. But then, you know, after the initial excitement wore off, you know, I was ready to see how it actually held up playing with it in person, and I have to say, like, I completely agree with what you just said. The process of being walked through building it yourself, actually seeing how it works and seeing how it interacts with the game's designed for it, like, the whole thing is just such a cool idea. Like, what a radical idea, putting together these devices, like these contraptions, accessories yourself, and seeing it actually work. Because, you know, I mean, we've gone through phases like this before, similar, like with the Wii era, where you had tons of plastic accessories. Mm-hmm. But this really does feel like something different.
Oh yeah, it feels so totally different, because you also sort of attach a value to it, because you build it yourself. Mm-hmm. You made it from scratch. You feel like it is your own. Even with that silly little RC car, at the end of it I was like, oh, this is mine. I put some stickers on there, I colored it, and at the end they were like, oh yeah, we will send you these when the game launches. It's like, oh man, but I feel attached to this, and I had a lot of fun making it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. You because there is an attachment there, so to speak, I suppose. There's literally attachments to the Joy-Con. But no, the process of building it, right, it creates a connection you wouldn't have normally with these accessories. Like, whereas they kind of felt like pretty forgettable before, even depending on the game, not always.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, here, like, you're actually, you see it transform from being nothing, literally just cardboard, into these accessories, which is kind of magical. It particularly with how well they work. Like, I'm still, like, blown away by how well, like, things like the fishing rod worked, or the robot kit. Like, these are things that should not, they don't look like they should work that well, and yet they worked incredibly elegantly, I felt like.
Sadly, I didn't get to build a fishing rod or anything really intricate. I did the RC car, then I built the house. That were the two building projects I was assigned to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we had the RC car and the fishing rod, so that's a little bit different. A little bit interesting how they split that up.
You could go to the other building projects later if you really didn't want to play the games. Why wouldn't you want to play the games? I mean, you have a couple of hours.
Because games are a key component of that.
Yeah, but you had the option to build the entire piano if you wanted to.
So what was it like building the house? Because that's one I didn't see. That's one I didn't have experience with. What was that process like?
In some ways it feels very similar to the RC car, because like there are not many parts to it. It's just that the parts here need to slide in place a whole lot more.
I see.
You build like the house parts without the roof. You build separately, and then you put the roof on top of that, and the chimney where the Joy-Con sits in, what have you, and then you go from there. Mm-hmm. And you have to ensure that everything sits tightly, that it's put right, and that it can't fall apart that way. And it actually feels like really robust once you do it.
That's kind of the surprising thing in general about the Toy-Cons, is that, at least in the time I spent with them, they felt robust. Like, it didn't feel like they were going to fall apart or anything.
No, and I think that they have a good use of flaps. Like, I built RC car and naturally the house, and they have a good use of flaps and how the cardboard fits in there, ensure that it stays in place. Mm-hmm. And they've built that very intricately, and just ensuring that it just feels like a nice experience, but also at the same time, it doesn't fall apart after spending hours with it. Which I think is the most important thing here, because it shouldn't feel like a waste of time. It should feel like a fun experience through and through.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So it will be interesting to see how well they hold up in the long term, because They seem sturdy, but, after a few weeks, after some spills, after some accidentally stepping on them, maybe, we'll see. It might be a bit of a different story. Now, what did you think of the actual, I know you already touched on it a little bit, but what do you think of actually building these things yourself? Like how the Switch walked you through it? Because that's something I didn't do too much myself, because I was recording my niece do it. But what really impressed me was my niece, who's 9, she did it almost completely hands off. Like, she did almost everything by herself, going by the Switch. And she was even ahead of it at points. Like, she was getting bored of following the Switch step by step. She's like, screw this, I'm gonna start folding this stuff where I can see it's gonna be folded. And she had almost no issues, which is kind of nuts because, as I mentioned before, we were building, one of the things we were building was a fishing rod. That's a pretty intricate piece of machinery there, if you want to call it that. And she, and granted, we didn't get all the way through, but we got maybe, I think, at least halfway through, maybe 2/3. And we got at least to the telescoping part, and I was blown away with how with my niece was able to just put this together with almost no outside help.
Yeah, I think that there will be definitely people who can do that, do it by feel.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are amazingly at building stuff, and they will see the piece and put 2 and 2 together. Especially the younger generation who doesn't always have the patience, they will get a kick out of exploring that themselves, I feel.
Yeah.
But there are also plenty of people, like myself, who are pretty bad at technical building. And I always been bad at that, and I just followed the instructions all the way through. So with the RC car, I just did that, and just wanted to make sure that, am I doing this correctly? Am I doing this right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I performing every step correctly? Because I was so unsure the first time around. Because you don't know how hard you can push the cardboard, and the game just guides you and explains from do this, do that. And you sort of feel the confidence to just go and do it. A friend of mine who was with me, people see him in the videos of playing all of the games. He did it in 5 minutes, like the RC car. He was also barely following the instructions. He does follow the instructions a little bit, just to see what they were like.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, he went through that process really, really fast, while I was still halfway built for building it. So I think it really depends on the kind of person you are, and how well versed you are with technical building. For me personally, I just feel more comfortable with following the instructions, and I feel that the instructions are just also really, really nice. They sort of a Lego feel where they show you all the sides and how you have to do it, but it feels a lot more interactive because once again you can pinch, you can zoom, you can go back and forward, you can change the camera angle as well. It just feels really nice to have that next to you.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy how Labo, of all the games, is the one that really brings together all the Switch's key features, whether it's the touchscreen, the Joy-Cons, being able to dock it in the case of the robot game, Toy-Con Robot.
Right.
It's really crazy that this is the one to bring everything together, including the otherwise useless IR feature, which I'm blown away they still found a use for. Not just a use, a really awesome use, with a piano and again the robot, and how the IR camera is the one that sees what's happening on the inside of these contraptions. That is genius to me, and that's kind of part of what makes Labo so fun, is because you're building these things, and then afterward you can kind of better see how they work. With a robot, you can take off the back panel, and you can see how all the levers moving around. With a piano, you can see inside and how it's actually registering the keys being raised when you hit them on the with each press. It's again just a really neat idea.
I think that also the part of exploring is finding out stuff yourself. They had a separate exploration area where we couldn't film. I think it was similar in your case, where they just didn't allow you to film. But for us, it was more exploring the features of what every single Toy-Con can do, and how they can just allow you to do some really fun stuff. For us, it was they put it on a obstacle course in the dark for the RC car. So you would slide the RC car into it, and then it sort of becomes a maze where you solely have to use the camera on the touchscreen to get through it. Which I thought was a really fun idea.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to see what people come up with for the Toy-Con RC car and who knows what else. I'm already imagining in my mind, I would love to set up a Mario Kart racetrack for the RC cars and have races with friends.
Yeah, they had it on display on us as well, where they had a separate racetrack for them. And I saw people racing now and again. I was like, I already seen enough of the RC car. I just want to see some other stuff.
Well, speaking of which, let's go and talk about everything else. So, because after you went through the building process, you had the little demo room where you could play with everything, and I believe you had a chance to try out all the Toy-Cons as well, right?
Yeah, for us it was just a really open area, so you could just walk up to anything you liked.
Yeah, same for us.
Yeah, so they had the building somewhere in between. You could just walk to every single area and just do whatever you wanted to.
What was your favorite Toy-Con? Of all the Toy-Cons you played, which one resonated with you most? Putting you on the spot here.
Fishing rod. Yeah.
Fishing rod is surprisingly cool, isn't it?
I love the fishing rod. Like, we just had a sitting area where we sit behind the block, and our view was the canal of Amsterdam. So we're just literally looking
awesome.
over the canal while fishing with the Nintendo Switch, which felt really cool.
Would you say the game has a lot of depth to it?
Hey, I see what you did there. Yes, especially once you reel in further down the hole. Like, it's surprising what kind of fish and types you come across, because they become more difficult and more intricate, and you need to think of more steps to let them stay on your rod. And then becomes the process of reeling up, which you actually have to move the Toy-Con alongside with how the fish moves. And even with the strings just having nothing in there besides the switch screen, it feels surprisingly like intricate and interesting. Like, there's something, I don't know what it exactly does, but you actually sort of feel a pull. Like,
it's wild. Like, I mean, when I first saw the fishing rod in the trailer, I'm like, that looks, I mean, I thought it looked cool still, but I was a huge fan of the concept. But I'm like, that looks a little bit goofy too. Like, you're pretending to be fishing off this dock or whatever. But then I play with it, I'm like, man, there's something to this. Like, what really impressed me was how well the Switch read your fishing rod movements. How, like, wherever you position the string was exactly how it also acted in the game. If you pull back, it would pull back in the game. If you tilted left or right, you would see it move. You would see the string in real life move left or right, and then on the screen do the exact same thing.
Like, the connection between screen and Toy-Con felt the most magical.
Yeah, it felt like the string was literally going into the Switch.
Yeah! I exactly said it to my friend exactly that same way. I was like, it just feels like they're connected somehow.
Yeah.
I'm sure they aren't, but
yeah,
it feels that way.
I mean, what really surprised me, as I kind of hinted at earlier, was like how deep you can really reel your line out. Like, you can go way down into the hole, and the deeper, or into the ocean, I guess, and the deeper you go, like, the more exotic wildlife you're gonna find, as you mentioned. Like, my niece, one of the first things she came across, like, a giant shark. I think even lashed on for a second or two before she lost it, and she was, like, a little bit disappointed, and that was her goal. She wanted to get that shark again. I think she eventually had to settle with, I don't know, some kind of like sea bass or something. But yeah, like, once the fish latches on, then it's a matter of, like, reeling it in. And even reeling it in feels great. Like, how you can feel it clicking with the HD rumble, I think.
Also, there are different sizes per fish. So I was catching a bunch of mackerel just to test the basic functionality of the rod out.
Right.
And randomly I came across, like, an XL mackerel. Like, a really massive version of it. So there are scores per fish. There are different fish to collect. There are different things that could happen if you go deeper. One of the screens I was looking at from another person was he got a smaller fish, but then a bigger fish attached to it.
Well, you know what they say, Daan? There's always a bigger fish.
Yeah. And then he got to reel in the bigger fish instead of that smaller fish. There's so much small details going on that I really, really appreciate about it. You can also build your own aquariums with the Toy-Con piano, which I found a really weird combination.
I love how they have some of that interplay between some of these games, it seems, or at least fishing, where you can see your aquarium and see what fish you've caught. Like, what a neat little idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been in other fishing games, even from Nintendo, sure. But like, how you interact with, once again, with the Toy-Con piano, and you can put in your own fish as well. With just creating it out of cardboard again is really, really funny.
Yeah, it is. So let's go ahead and move on now. I guess I'll mention one of my favorites.
Sure, go ahead.
Maybe not my favorite, but one of my favorites, and that is the Motorbike. And it might be because partially, I mean, I actually ride a motorcycle, so I'm always, I always like it when, I like anything involving motorcycles. I use a motorcycle in Mario Kart 8. But whenever, I always appreciate it when the game goes extra mile to actually make it feel like somewhat like actually riding a bike. And I have to say, this actually did a pretty good job. One of the things that actually impressed me most, again, is the HD rumble and how, like, you actually felt the engine's vibrations coming through in the handlebars. And I loved how you actually had to, like, lean into the corners by actually holding the handlebar device against your chest, and you actually lean with it. So it felt good, and not just that too. Like, it felt good because the gameplay itself felt good. Again, I can't speak to the amount of depth here. I have no idea how long I'll actually play this for. But what little I played felt really responsive. Basically like Mario Kart essentially, with you being able to power slide around corners and get boosts, and you can honk your horn at opponents, which I believe throws them off.
You can also do wheelies and be pretty overpowered.
Yeah, that's right. So what did you think of the motorbike one?
Just like you said, I was pretty impressed with how it felt. Even with the startup button and pulling it back, that small detail like really resonated with me. I pulled it back, I pushed the start button. I was not doing it right at first. I was like, but I'm doing wrong. And I was like, this is not like acceleration like in other racing games. You actually have to pull it right back.
Right.
And that felt so good once you nailed that down. I don't know why. It's just a small detail, but I really, really liked about it. But as far as the racing is concerned, it felt good, especially with just the rotation of like the steering wheel and get through corners was nice. The drifting and the wheelies, where it felt it really came into its own. It really came together for me and clicked in my head from, this is really fun. I really, really like this.
Yeah.
Where I'm a bit unsure about is the content.
Exactly, that's it.
I played most of the 9 tracks in my singular session with the motorbike. Of course, I didn't get great results on every single race, especially on the expert levels. But I did play most of the levels that were already in this thing, and there's a good variety of how they place obstacles and how the weather and other smaller things like impact the way you race.
Right.
It's for me going to be interesting how they're going to present, say, building your own tracks and making stuff out of thin air, because they've shown it with the 2 additional Toy-Con projects that go along with the motorbike that you can do that. And I think that's where the most replay value lies.
The creation tools seem really impressive, but the thing for me though is that they haven't announced that there's any kind of multiplayer yet for it, have they?
As far as I've seen in the menus, I don't think there's multiplayer there.
So that's kind of the big concern, because yeah, it's awesome you can make these tracks. I love creating things in games in general, and being able, like, I've wanted a Mario Kart track creator for forever. So it's cool we're getting something kind of like that. But at the same time, it's like, if you can't share it with anyone or play it with anyone, what's the point?
Yeah, they need some online sharing functionality at the very least with that. I don't know if that will be there from the get-go. I'm totally sure on that, but it should at least be. If not, it should be there in an update.
That's what I hope. I hope this is a platform that they can keep building off of. Add updates, add even more features, add more interplay between the Toy-Cons, and possibly add online multiplayer to these things. Because can you imagine the robot game with online multiplayer?
Well, to be fair, I just was thinking about level sharing at the very least.
Yeah.
Because that's something that needs to be there just to showcase the creativity of other players.
Totally. I don't think it'd be that fun to play your own track, but if you could play other people's tracks and share what you created, that's where the fun could really come in. But I think the cherry on top would be if you could actually race those tracks online. So we'll see. Although I'm still a little bit afraid of what people might scan for their custom tracks, and if those ended up online.
I know the thing you're thinking of, and not saying it out loud, but yeah, you're right.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to let's move on to whatever you want to talk about. What was another Toy-Con that stood out to you?
The piano.
Piano is awesome, right?
The piano is literally the best thing I've ever seen. It will be a really long time to build. I can already see it with all the parts, with all the keys, and then the bigger body surrounding it. It will be really, really long process to get this together. But
so worth it.
It will be so worth it, because the way that the piano works is sort of amazing. Like it scans the reflective tape on the keys of the piano, and it just works. And instantly a tune comes out of it. Like it feels in it instantly, without any lag whatsoever, which is super impressive.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I think the piano might be the best example of how good the Toy-Cons felt in general.
I didn't feel like the harshness of a regular piano key, but it felt pretty good.
So I think the piano might be like kind of one of the killer Toy-Cons, because this one has, like, once you build it, then it becomes a whole potential learning tool. Like, if this can get kids interested in music and, like, perhaps musical, like a career or, at least a hobby in music, that would be kind of amazing.
Yeah, and it's also very versatile too, because they showed us a lot also that you can change octaves in the options menu, and do some smaller tweaks in the recording menu, then go back to piano to use that in the actual piano app, which is really, really awesome. Like, the amounts of low and highs you can reach with that small 13 key piano is really, really good. Next to like that you can change the octaves, you can also like put in several levers, so you can pull in a cat noise or a bunch of old men or just a chord of people just singing. It's really, really fun. And when you turn those knobs, like you add echo to them. Like, there are so many small intricacies, and maybe down the line, you never know, they just add a bunch of knobs in like a $10 kit, which I would kind of willing to buy, actually, just to see the craziness that came up with just fun noises and what have you.
Oh yeah, because they even showed off the functionality where you can you have these like sheet music type things. You punch out the little holes in them, and then that turns it into a song the piano can play automatically for you by just slotting it in.
Yeah, that's actually how note music really starts with those little points.
Right.
So basically, it creates a song that way, which you can just basically replay by pushing the play button on the left side. The default play option just has 3 songs, which you go for pretty quickly, and you can just use to adjust everything, like your tone, your echo with. But for the rest, it's just playing, recording, changing the layers of how you use the music, then go back into it, do it again, and just have a good time with a 13 key piano.
I wonder if it'll have any like actual tutorials, like, walk you through how to actually play music.
I didn't see anything of the sorts in there.
Yeah, I wonder if that might be something they could add down the line, because I think that'd be a really good idea. Especially like they could even like cross-branded, like have songs of Mario or Zelda they can play in there.
I was surprised that it didn't have a singular Nintendo song in there. Just to give an example, like the ground theme of Super Mario Bros.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they had 3 loyalty-free songs in there,
right?
Which don't have any rights anymore, but not anything that's of theirs.
Well, I think there's only one Toy-Con left besides the robot we haven't touched on, so one left from the variety kit, and that is the Toy-Con house. Now, this is one I didn't get to see too much, but I think I was playing with the motorbike while my niece is taking on the house detail. So, yeah, what did you think of this one? Like, where you have like the little virtual creature they can play with by plugging in things into the house.
For starters, the virtual creature is adorable, and I think
really, I think it's a little bit freaky because he's got like the face hole with the loose skin around it. They can pull all kinds of things in and out of.
he was the most adorable thing I've seen from everything that day.
Wow.
Especially how you interact with it. It feels, in its basic functionality, it kind of feels like a Tamagotchi.
Yeah, totally.
Because you feed him beans or other obstacles that you just interact with. It basically comes down to how you place the knobs in this game.
Because you have 4 holes in it, right? Or 3, 4?
3 holes.
Yeah.
3 holes. You have the basic house where it just shows like a Game Boy-esque television and a Hanafuda card and what have you. Nice details, but nothing too crazy. The crazy part comes when you put in the various knobs. Like if you put the twist knob in the left side, and the right side you have the push button. You get a minecart minigame, where you push the left side to get started, and the right side you need to use for jumping. Where you collect various gems, and you get items that way for your creature, like a bunch of beans or other things like bananas. Another thing is, if you put it a certain way, I don't remember the exact combination, you can use those beans and create a cupcake for your character, which gives it a really weird new fur look. Like it creates a almost completely weird different style to it, which we found really fun. The minigames were cool. Like, there is one that's sort of inspired on balloon flight, even though you now go vertical instead of horizontal. There is a sort of a bowling one where you punch back the creature and then you send it off, and you have to tilt the house to get a strike or a spare or whatever you want. And then there is another thing where it's more of a carnival game, where you try to hit objects and pull them down, and then you get directly a new item from that. So there are a number of minigames in there. I just think that the longevity is not really there. Like, the activities in themselves are kind of cute and adorable,
right?
But they don't really have any major replay value.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see that. And that's kind of like that might be an overarching theme for several of these toy cons, but I do agree the house does seem like maybe the most limited. But yeah, it's hard to say for sure. It's one I spent the least amount of time with too, so I can't speak for it too much myself. But yeah, right. it was kind of one that I was just least interested in. Like, I think it's cute. I like the idea. It seemed, it seems fun plugging into different plugs, I guess, and seeing what all they do and how they interact with the creature. But yeah, it does seem like kind of just an elaborate Tamagotchi.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There's some really cute stuff on there. Like, if you only put like the twist knob and pull it, it basically becomes like this thing that the creature can look at and fall asleep at. So there's basically a whole lot of little smaller details that I really, really think were fun. I just don't think that the replay value is there in this one.
Yeah, it may not be. But that's a great thing about the Variety Kit, right? Because you're getting 5 toy cons for the price of less than 1 robot toy con.
True.
So I guess let's go ahead and move on now to the final, perhaps most impressive toy con, or the most elaborate at the least, being the Robot Variety Kit. And this one is so crazy to me. Like, the fact that you're making an entire freaking suit, a robot suit out of cardboard that is then completely motion controlled. Like, this, I mean, in some ways, like, it kind of feels like VR without the VR. Like, it's or like, I guess a closer example would be Kinect. Like, it does kind of feel like Kinect without the actual Kinect itself, but a little bit more satisfying because you do have some tactile feedback in the fact that when you're punching, you feel like the levers moving your backpack. So, what was your overall impression of playing as a giant robot?
So, I got to play the timed mission, the 5-minute timed mission where you just destroy everything as much as possible. I felt that there were a lot of intricacies in the controls that I really, really like flying, and once you are flying, you can pull up one leg and do a gigantic stomp into the ground, which was awesome.
And to fly, you put your arms out, just to clarify.
Yeah, and also going into like fetus position, as I call it, to change into the car.
Yeah, where you crouch down.
Yeah. Where I think it becomes a difficult situation is the actual movement. And I mean this because you really have to lean to go left and right, which doesn't go as smooth as I expecting it would be. And then the second part about this is you really have to stomp with your feet into the ground to get forward in the regular style outside of the car.
This is true, but I'm not entirely sure that's not by design, because the robot is kind of built to be like this big, clunky beast, right? So kind of, I think maybe they wanted to emulate that, where like you kind of have to like stomp around in order to mimic this giant robot roaming the city.
Yeah, it's. I totally understand what they're going for. It's just that
you have to move around a lot.
It didn't feel as natural as it should be. because like I had to do really gigantic steps to get one step moving. And I had 1 or 2 times where it didn't register it just right how I wanted it to be.
I can see
and
that.
It might be because of how the strings were attached to my feet, like the length of the string might be too long, what have you. And it could be totally possible. I mean, I have to try it in the actual setting where I'm just at home trying it.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, because when I played it, and partially it might be just because I was just impressed the entire thing works at all. Because that actually was the first Toy-Con I played with in the little demo room. And the fact, again, that this cardboard works as well as it does, like, was kind of blowing my mind.
Sure.
I did have initially some similar sensitivity issues, but then they adjusted the string for me, and that actually did help. Because there was one point where I think the string on my right arm was too long, so I'd hold my arm up and my leg up to try to do the, it was like you got a Mega Mushroom and your robot turns big, and that wasn't registering, so I actually had to pull the string manually with my other hand and, like, make it tight, and that worked. But then they tightened the string, and that's when things started working a little bit better. Yeah, I think that might be an issue for some people, but it also, like, once they fix that, it worked. But in general, this Toy-Con is going to have the most setup of any Toy-Con, once you get it built. Because you do have to adjust that string, put everything on, and make sure you're wearing it right before you actually play the game. And even then, it might become unadjusted, as you're playing.
Yeah, and I think that's the big worry there, especially when you go through the various missions that mode offers. Like, mission mode is where I see the most trouble coming in later down the line. But like, just the destruction missions and, say, the fun robot thing where you make noises when you move could be a lot of fun and more simple. It's just that specific set of missions where I have some questions about that. And how that will stay attached for the long run. That being said, like, punching just felt right for me. You can really hear it clicking in the back of your backpack though, which was sort of hilarious.
Yeah.
And sort of clacking around and making noises in there, which you really want to look into that and see what is actually happening in there.
It is pretty crazy, because you can feel the levers moving in the backpack, and when you let go or pull back your punch, you feel like the weight drop in your backpack.
Right. Yeah.
It's really interesting, but yeah, it definitely gives. Like, as you kind of touched on, like, when you punch a building, it feels kind of good, doesn't it? Like, when you're stomping your way through the city, like, it feels like your actions are translating into movement on screen, which they are.
Yeah, I definitely seems like you have to adjust, especially when you are, once again, in fetus position and moving the car around. It feels like you have to do a lot more to keep yourself in check, and especially with that robot suit on, that's not easy. I think it may get better in time, but it didn't leave too strong an impression on me. I feel that I need some time to adjust myself to it and learn how everything works about it. But yeah, I had some minor issues along the way with the robot suit.
For me, like, it sounds like I was much more impressed with it. Maybe because I didn't have that many issues with it. But I actually had a lot of fun with it. Granted, I don't know. Again,
oh yeah, sure. I still think the destruction side of it is awesome, and I kind of like it. But it's just the smaller details that I think need time to adjusting to.
Yeah, that could be. So, I think another a question I have with all the Toy-Cons is how much replayabilities are going to be for it, and are you really going to want to put on a robot suit every time you play? But then again, if you're a kid, that's probably not too much of an issue. Because these aren't really designed with adults in mind. So, although I was having fun moving around, so.
But hey, as an adult, that's where Toy-Con Garage comes in now, does it?
Yeah, that's true, where you can kind of build your own Toy-Cons and, however you want and do whatever you want with them.
Or combine the Toy-Cons that you already have.
That's true.
They showed us a bunch of examples during a private presentation. For example, combining the steering wheel of the motorbike with the RC car to control that with the motorbike thing. Right. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. I saw one of the examples was not combining, but they made a guitar out of it. Where you actually strum this switch screen in order to play the guitar.
They showed us that too. Yeah.
They had a vending machine. I don't know how that one works. They made a vending machine with this thing, which is crazy.
Yeah, and they showed us all of the nods and the options that you can do with it on the Switch screen, and the amount of options are impressive. I think there's a lot of variety possible with it, especially the shapes that you can make that can appear on the Switch's screen.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder which kind of people it will attract. Will it attract a creative mind, or will it be something for kids? Because I rather think it's the latter rather than the former. Or the former instead of the latter, I suppose. Because I don't see kids like playing around much with the Toy-Con garage all that much. Once again, it depends on the person. But I do think that they would be more focused on building the Toy-Cons, just playing with them.
I mean, there will be a first, absolutely. But I think the Toy-Con garage could maybe be the the secret killer feature here. Like, I think we might see some crazy, just crazy concepts from kids even. Like, just some crazy ideas adults may never think of that these kids are putting together. But I remember, even as a kid myself, I would build crap out of cardboard all the time. I have a video of this. I need to find this. This would be kind of an amazing video post on GameXplain. I made a whole Star Fox garage out of cardboard.
Nice.
I even had an R-wing. I turned my sled into a cardboard R-wing. I also made, I'm sure lots of other kids did this too, where you have dioramas, like a cardboard diorama. I mean, right. Mario World in there. So I really think there's a lot of potential here for maybe a little bit older kids. Like my niece, for instance, age 9 to 13 or early teens. Maybe
that age demographic is really perfect for it.
I felt I think so. Well, but at the event I was at, there were some younger kids too, and they had to be walked through the process a little bit more. Whereas, as I mentioned earlier, my niece just took right to it. I think because of that, she was right in the age range.
Yeah, I also think that the other side of it is parents creating stuff for their kids.
Yeah, that too. Exactly. They make toys for their kids.
Yeah, I think there are plenty of parents or just young adults that are really into the stuff that Toy-Con Garage does and can help to create new projects that other people can copy and use for themselves.
I agree. So, having played with all the Toy-Cons now, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Toy-Con Variety Kit versus the Toy-Con Robot.
I am Team Variety Kit.
I am too. I mean, I love the robot, but just in terms of basically in terms of value, the Variety Kit, you can't beat that. That's $10 cheaper than the robot, and there's so much more to do.
Yeah, and it is literally variety that you're getting. You're getting 2 RC cars, you're getting the piano, you're getting the fishing rod, you're getting the house, you're getting the motorbike, and also the various extra accessories for building your track on the motorbike. The test figure that you saw in the trailer, the test puppet that you can actually attach a Joy-Con to, you get it as well, so you can use it in Toy-Con Garage. There's a lot more there for your money.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that there's also a lot more there to build something for the future. With the robot kit, that seems a little bit more difficult. And I'm not saying that there's nothing possible with combining the robot kit to something really crazy and goofy. I just think that the options are less there than, say, the Variety Kit.
You know what I would love to see is a mode in ARMS where you can use the robot kit, the robot suit to play.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't it? That would be kind of amazing. You can even make it online if you want. Play other people's robot kits. That would be kind of cool. So I actually am kind of excited about the possibility of optional modes in Nintendo's other games with Labo. Like I said before, and lots of people said before, when I saw that Toy-Con camera, which isn't an official product yet, but presumably will be someday, I want a Pokemon Snap for that game. Dear God, give me a Pokemon Snap where you can zoom in by actually rotating the camera lens itself. That will be amazing.
I wish a new Pokemon Snap would happen regardless.
I agree, and once it does, I don't think it shouldn't need the camera Labo, but I hope that's an optional mode in the game.
Hey, that would be awesome, though.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, Daan, any final thoughts on Labo? Or, there we go again. Any final thoughts on Labo you want to get out there before we wrap it up?
I would say, once again, I had a really good time trying everything. It was really, really fun what they showed me. I have some reservations about the robot kit. We'll see if they are valid in time. By the time I get more time to play with it and build it and see how everything works. But I'm so in for the Variety Kit. I think there is so much fun there. Even though if not all the games hold up, I think with the Toy-Con Garage there, I will just keep pushing it to its limits for quite a while after I'm done with the games.
Yeah, I really can't see what people come up with this thing. Now I'm excited to play it myself. Do you think you'll pick up the variety kit yourself?
I will definitely get both. I am super into this stuff. I like buildings, like very intricate things, even though I'm not great at building. But once again, I feel so happy with how the instructions work that I feel sort of confident in just building everything. So yeah, I will definitely get these. Robot Kit will likely be the last one I build, though.
Oh, you mean you're gonna build everything else before you build a robot?
Yeah, because I kind of wanted to explore everything within the variety kit in the Toy-Con garage.
I think that makes sense. And with that, we're done here. So thank you for watching. If you liked what you just watched, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to those in the description below as well. And it's a great way to keep up to date on everything we post. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye.